All right, welcome to March 31st. At least it's not April Fool's Day today. Then we could have done a whole bunch of jokes, but that's tomorrow. Let's see, let me share my screen. Nope, not that one, that one. Okie dokie. Oops. Undo, and then redo. Okay. Let's see, do we have any new faces? It doesn't look like we have anyone new today. Okay. All right. Anything anyone wanted to bring up? Community interest, announcements?
I think we are very close to release the V3. We are doing some just basic documentation work and some minor adjustments. That's going to probably happen this week or maybe early next week, but probably tomorrow.
Awesome. I don't know if that was you, Lucky, trying to take notes, and I started. You can go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
So V3 of Java Operator SDK upcoming. All right. Anything else? I think last week, it was the week before. Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, we did release 1.18.1 with the latest SDK stuff. There's this tutorial update, but that's not code. That's mostly on the doc side, so we'll get that merged. That's it from the plugin side. And I looked at, there were no new issues as of today. Okay. Let's see. Java Operator SDK issues. Move this out of the way. Revert temporal workarounds.
Yeah, this was an issue we created today because we were not able to upgrade to the new Fabricate Kubernetes client because there were some non-backwards compatible changes. And basically, the problem was that the replace method was removed, and we just then used create or replace because that was still there. So it was kind of a bug or something that will be fixed on the client, but we wanted to upgrade because it fixes some other issues, maybe not in the SDK, but other places. So it's basically, this issue is about to get this back when the new client, it's fixed in the Fabricate client.
So they're going to put replace back? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I hope so. Or we will upgrade to version 6 eventually, where that will be hopefully back. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So, I mean, that's fine. It works. Feature flag for fail fast behavior.
Yeah, this is a part of a bigger story. So we had lots of discussion in the next issue, actually, in the backlog, where we have this now, the feature, the manage dependent resources, which will be which works in a way that you define in the Java annotations. I can show you maybe that to understand this. It's actually pretty interesting, and maybe you can. Chris is not here, it would be better, but so discuss this with also him. But basically, we have this web page managed. So we define resources in annotation in the managed dependent resources. And what happens is these get reconciled in the order. And last week, we changed the behavior that even if, for example, the deployment fails to reconcile because, I don't know, temporal network issues or anything, the other resources might is still reconciled. This makes sense in this Kubernetes philosophy that, for example, if you have a Helm chart or something that defines resources, all of them gets applied.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is when some other resource uses some as an input, the output of this resource, for example. So that would be something in the status of the deployment that the service would need, hypothetically, right? It actually makes problem in our sample operators, but so the problem then, I think it shouldn't be reconciled because it's really depending on that other resource that is reconciled. So it's kind of fails on that. And before we had this fail fast approach that if, for example, this failed or this failed, then we just executed the retry or initiated the retry and just executed the whole reconciliation loop again. But that changed, but this causes some kind of these problems. And what I'm suggesting here is okay, this makes sense if these are independent resources and not using one over each other's output, then it really makes sense to reconcile all of them and don't care. But if they are dependent to each other, then we shouldn't. We just fail fast. If this fails, then we shouldn't reconcile the service if it depends on that. And this is something for probably a feature flag that how to configure this. But actually, there are lots of other discussions how to make this more extendable, more a workflow deploying work. So it's there are lots of things around this. This is basically the first version in the V3 we're going to release and probably going to extend anyway and kind of enhance. So but the proposition is to have a feature flag to define if either should fail fast or shouldn't, and that user can decide.
Okay.
So that's it.
Would that feature flag be per controller?
Yes.
Okay. So that way, if these three were dependent, I could say fail fast. If they were independent, I could just leave that off and then let them keep going. And if it fails on one, it gets to the next one.
Yes.
Okay.
So if there will be too much complaints, then we actually already had an issue with some of our users which using the snapshot version. Then we will maybe even take a look sooner before the big workflow issue that handles everything in a very big picture. But yeah, that's about this.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, that was definitely easier to see in the code. Okay, this one was relatively new.
Yes, and basically this is that issue that a user created about this, that it's for some reason for him failed to reconcile a secret. Then we basically use that secret in another custom resource, and then we had a long discussion. I basically don't agree. I think we should have fail fast by default, but for now we decided to let's stay it like this, and we will see if others have issues with that.
Does this one reference the other? It doesn't look like it references this one. 1107.
No, the other reference is this one, I think. Or maybe the wrong link there is my comment. No, it just references the
1097.
Okay, that's a little bit different issue. That's yeah, I think these should cross-reference each other.
I should tie them together. All right. $17, 2 days ago. Web page standalone dependent reconcile.
This is I was working now basically before the meeting. It's it just have a better sample operator that shows the capabilities of the standalone dependent resources. It's almost done. I think just the build now fails, so it just there is a PR for that linked.
What is this? Is it really a web page that it's deploying or showing?
Yes, I can show you actually. I think if you are interested.
Sure.
So we have a custom resource here. It's called web page, and it's simply what it does is you can define the HTML page. So it's a simple sample how to abstract away that I want to just run a static web page on Kubernetes. And so this is one of our sample operators, and you can just specify this, and in the background it creates the pods, the service, and if you want to expose it, then the ingress. Basically, this is the update, this flag that's shown in the standalone reconciler. Its implementation is very easy in the SDK. Then it will just define these deployment, service, and ingress dependent resources if you are using dependent resources feature. And then you just say reconcile, and only reconcile ingress if this flag is true, basically the expose. This flag is if you want to expose it, then it's the ingress will be reconciled to, otherwise not.
Okay.
And basically that's it. So it's a very simple, but we show the differences between the managed, the standalone, and the basic raw web page reconciler, and we have free implementation just show the differences to the users to basically easier to understand what's going on with the dependent resources.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. It's a good way to illustrate it.
Yeah, I think it's simple enough, and basically should be easy to understand from that.
All right. Let's see. That was last week. So that one was the one describing workflows for dependent resources.
Yeah, so
looks like
maybe I can.
You've already got
PRs
PRs and everything to it.
I think that just mentioned when
okay.
there. So basically, the idea is that, as you saw, there are these managed dependence resources, but in any way. So usually, what happens in a reconciliation, it says you go through the resources, you reconcile each resource, and basically we want to have a little bit more complex workflows, like if some resources depends on each other, or basically these conditions. If I should create the ingress, only this flag is set, what we saw in the previous example. That is, we want to have a nice API in the builder to just describe these conditions and the APIs, and in a very declarative way. And it shouldn't be that big issue to implement. It should be very useful, just describe some workflows in Java annotations or in a standalone mode to have workflows, not just a list of resources to reconcile. But first we have to agree on what should be the scope, because apparently we are sometimes having these discussions on what should be in the scope, and then we create a little prototype and we see how it could be done with Java annotation, which is a little bit nicer. And for now, this is just an issue, just basically agree on these design principles, and but then the coding part, the implementation part should be fairly easy now on top of these dependent resources.
Cool. Okay, that one's create a doc of the basic pattern. So that's just a documentation story. Okay, this one doesn't have any labels.
I just unit test sometimes failing. I created to not to forget that. So I will implement soon. Fix it.
Cool. That. Okay, that was last week. What's that one? That one's assigned, so all right. I think that's all the new issues. Cool.
Maybe I wanted to ask if there is some case study or something in the operator SDK or controller runtime which kind of describe these primitives, what happens usually in a reconciliation. Like we want to create some document when we want to have these primitive operations, like you either reconcile multiple Kubernetes objects or you reconcile external resource, some combinations, some depends on. So basically just to, then we are able to make architectural decisions, what we support, and then point to that use case. There is no such documentation or something you are aware of, like a more technical.
In terms of like what to reconcile and when? Not that I am aware of.
Yeah, that's basically it. That I think we skipped that. If you open, this is. I wanted to start for this meeting, but I didn't have time just to really have the cases we want to cover, and which should be really kind of a very simple primitive cases. Like as I said, I have just a list Kubernetes independent resources or dependent each other, and I have external resources, some of these combinations of these, just probably a list of 10 bullet points of the kind of basic cases, what happens in the reconciler, because sometimes we tend to hard to agree what should be in the scope. But I will prepare it probably for the next meetings, one of our next meeting, and we could maybe try to validate it with others who are more experienced in the operators.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. Okay. Anything else folks wanted to discuss? Sounds like next meeting we could probably have a discussion on what you just talked about, Attila, and then.
Yeah, that would be great.
Cool. All right. If no one else has anything, that's all we have on the agenda for today. I will give you 40 minutes back. All right. Well, thank you for your time, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.